to learn the good, the bad, and the reality of the nomadic lifestyle, click the subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Click the bell notification. Thought I would do a question answer video today. I haven't been able to do these for a long time. I used to do them about once, twice a month where, I would go through the comment section and I would answer questions. But the comment section became such a terrible place for, I don't know, almost 2 months straight. And then YouTube started changing the regulations and rules and everything about the commenters. And so I even actually disabled comments for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. And now I'm putting them all in a review. And instead of just reviewing it and letting it go, what I'm doing is I'm letting it sit there for 3 days. So if you make a comment, 3 days later, I will approve your comment and it'll show up so everybody can see it at that point. And the reason I'm doing that is I've noticed if I let it sit there and review, YouTube will actually delete the comments that are inappropriate for me and I don't have to worry about it. And then I know that YouTube is not concerned about the comment anymore. Cleaned up the comment section immensely. As you know, Carolyn and I are getting ready to transition from the nomadic lifestyle into what we're calling the off-grid lifestyle in a tiny house. We're really excited about it. We've bought a piece of property. It's an 1.5 acres, has a well on it, which I'm going to talk about the well here in a minute. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take the camper off the truck, build a base for it so we can set the camper down onto the base, and we're going to live in the camper until we can build a tiny house on a mobile home trailer that is sitting there. The mobile home is pretty much demolished. They've stripped everything they wanted off of it, I guess. And so we're just going to use that frame. And I think it's going to keep us from having to abide by a lot of the code enforcement regulations that may apply, although I don't think we're in violation of any code. All right, so the first question is, I talked about how I am intending to butcher pigs once or twice, 3 times a year when we get off into the off-grid living. And one of the questions is do we have a freezer? Well, no. And that is going to be a problem, obviously. So we're not going to be able to do any butchering anything until I think we get the tiny house built. So, we're talking a year, maybe 2 in the future before I start doing any kind of food preservation or anything like that. We got to take things in stages. Stage 1, get the well working. That's going to take a day. Stage 2, get the camper off the truck, maybe another day. Get the solar panels hooked up. And then we can start cleaning up the trailer so we can start building our tiny house. And then we'll move on from there. But currently, we don't have a lot of solar energy. As a matter of fact, we probably don't have enough to sustain the camper. We got 4 panels. And I'm going to do some experimenting with it and understanding it a little bit better and the newer technologies from when I used to use it. We're talking a 15-year difference, so I'm hoping the newer panels do a little better than the older ones. But mathematically, it looks like I need at least another panel. So I'm going to hold off on it until I know what we got and what we need. Here's the thing when you're thinking of solar. Anytime you think about buying something, what we would have to do in order to be able to butcher, we would have to buy a freezer. And what I looked at today was a 5 cubic foot freezer. They're real small ones, and that would hold a pig very nicely. But the first thing you got to do is figure out how many watts it's going to take. The first freezer I looked at said it was going to take 283 kilowatts. I didn't write it down. A year. Well, okay, so now you got to multiply that by 1,000 because you got to look at watts. And so 280 kilowatts times 1,000 comes up to 280,000 watts. And then you divide that by 365. I came up with it's going to be 600 watts per day. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means I definitely don't have enough solar panels to run a freezer. A 100-watt solar panel will produce 350 watts per day because of cloudiness, on average, cloudiness and short days and long days. And so that means I would have to have at least 2 panels to run a freezer. So I would have to get an additional 2 panels. Well, I'm not going to buy any more panels until after the tiny house is built. Then we can really start looking at how much electricity we need because I want to run an air conditioner and I still want to run the well on a regular basis. So I'm going to have 10 to 15 solar panels that I'm going to have to add on to, and they're $75 a piece. And I can buy this set of 4 every now and then, just add on 4. Okay, the other day I was talking about composting toilets, and that's what we're going to do is we're going to compost our waste. One question was, why don't you just do an outhouse like they did back in the day? Dig a hole, set a building on top of it, and there you go to the bathroom. Well, if you notice, there isn't a lot of outhouses around anymore. People aren't using outhouses. The reason is they're mostly illegal. Almost everywhere they're illegal now. You can find them in like Alaska, and I think Montana, and some different states, but in general, they're basically illegal. And I don't want to run into any situation where the county comes out and says, oh, you're illegal. I've already done 2 videos now on the Amish. The Amish are, they live off grid. That's their life. That's their religion. Minnesota and Pennsylvania, they have tried to shut down, or trying to shut down, people living off grid because they fear, not that they've proven, but they fear the outhouse is draining into the groundwater. So I don't want to run into that kind of situation. Now, the other thing they brought up was, why don't you buy, when you're composting your waste, why don't you buy one of these really expensive composting barrels? You can spin them or you can roll them on the ground, and they compost your waste really well. Or I could do what I said in the video, which is I just buy a barrel. And yes, you can mix it up, just dump the barrel over on the side and you roll it. So I don't need to go out and buy really expensive equipment when I can just do with the equipment that I already planned on doing. I can paint it black, it'll heat up really hot, and it will do the same thing as these really expensive composting barrels. And yeah, I will roll it around, and you roll it around, a couple times a week. In one of my videos, I was talking about being concerned about the well freezing. And a lot of people came back and said, why don't you use a light bulb? That's what we always do in our well. We put a light bulb in a well house, and it keeps everything warm in there. And I agree that, my dad did that when I was growing up. My grandpa did it when I was growing up. Everybody I know uses a light bulb for the well house. That's a lot of wattage. That's more energy than I can handle. I can't use that kind of energy. I am trying to figure out how to use very little energy or no energy. And I found this little 25 watt heat strip that I could stick down around the pipe of the well. And I thought that would do it, just insulate it. But it's still wattage. There was a commenter, though, that came up with a brilliant idea. What he suggested is you go down the well hole about 36 inches below the freeze line, and you drill a hole right in, just a little bitty tiny hole in the side of the pipe. When the well kicks on, yeah, you're going to lose a little bit of water, but nothing really extreme. You're still going to get 99.99999% of the water coming out where you want it to come out. You're going to get this little dribble coming out 36 inches down into the well hole. And when you shut off the well, that water will start to drain out of that hole, that little bitty hole, and so there won't be any water up there to freeze. And so you only got to fill 36 inches. So, since we're not using a pressurized tank, this is going to be a great idea. So we'll fill up our IBC tank, and when we're done, it'll just all drain right back into the well. Nothing freezes. Great idea. Thank you very much for the idea. And to top it off, it takes no electric, and it's absolutely free. As I already said, we're going to take the camper off the truck, but I got to build a little base. The base is going to cost $150 to build. I need some 2x2s. I think I said 19 2x2s, but I'm actually getting a few more 2x2s. Going to use it for my solar panel frame. I got to get some OSB or OBS or whatever they call that material for the floor of the camper, because the camper right now, the floor of the camper is the pickup truck. So I got to build basically the box of the pickup truck for the camper. It's going to be 22 inches tall. And then I'm going to put the camper right on that box and put some Coroplast, which is the plastic that is on, like siding, on the side of it. Now I can live in the camper. So many people suggested, why don't I get a trailer, or why don't I get a shed? You can buy these Home Depot sheds for like $1,600 or $2,000, or build a shed. And that way we can live in the shed or the camper. And when we move into the tiny house, then we can use the shed as storage, for tools and different things. Well, first, we're not going to get a trailer. We're just not going to waste the money. This is key. Every dime we spend is less money we can spend on our home, our tiny home, the place we're going to hopefully spend the rest of our lives at. I want to spend as much money on it as possible, and not a lot of money on everything else. Yes, I know you need a shed so you can store your tools. The camper right here is going to be the shed. The camper was $600. And so I'm not just going to waste the material. We'll take the bed out of it. Right now we got a permanently mounted bed. I'll cut the bed out, and I will have a great storage area for tools. It's going to be huge. I can almost park a lawnmower in it. It'll be big enough, a riding lawnmower. So there's no reason for me to go buy a shed. And I know this. So many people think I need a bigger space. You need a bigger space. You need a bigger space. Well, bigger space means more money. Every time you look at a bigger space, you got higher heating costs, you got higher air conditioning costs. All your costs go up. And the whole point of minimalizing your lifestyle is to bring your costs down. Thanks for watching. Click like if you like the video, and happy travels.